Greetings, good people. This is Kevin Orris, going to be doing a live stream, Ask Us Anything, with my brother Kyle Anker. We're going to be discussing the wild, naturally sourced sovereign masculine feminine, what that means for community, for relationships, for business, for our modern world that we live in. We'll be talking about AI, mind control, the programming that unfortunately has very much colored the modern world in relationships. It's covered the modern state of men's and women's work, brotherhood, sisterhood, and so many other things. This is a topic we've been going on now for a few weeks. We also want to get y'all involved and have y'all ask any questions you have and engage with y'all. So yeah, if you're watching this video live, awesome. If you're watching this video still comment and let us know what you think. Would love to hear from y'all. And obviously tag someone who needs to hear it or share this video if it was impactful for you. Here we go. I think it's working.
Well, now your audio is not coming through my headphones for some reason. It was a moment ago.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I hear you, but it was coming through my headphones before I joined, and now it's just through the phone. Man, it's always something with these things.
Take three, third time is the charm. Yeah, I might just ditch the headphones because honestly, I mean, I hear you all right. Your video's lagging a little bit, but as long as we can hear each other, we should be good.
Yeah, this happened last time. There was some lag.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
jungle problems.
Got it. Just turn them off and back on again. Now we're good.
Oh, there you go. The classic, turn it off and turn it back on. It works every time.
Okay. Who we got here? We got a couple of viewers, it seems. I see 4 eyeballs. Oh, 3 now.
Yeah.
That's me, you, and someone else.
We got Avasha. We got Olivia in the house. Welcome, y'all. So yeah, I mean, It's funny. I was just seeing a ad today for basically some kind of like AI assistant for moms, and it's like, this is a great Mother's Day gift. Like, get your mom the gift of a socially whitewashed robot who tells her everything she wants to hear and then sells her shit she doesn't need. It's fucking crazy, man. It's crazier every day. I'm not anti-AI. It's cringe how instantly it's being used in the most yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a boomer, but.
I mean, our mutual friend Christopher is in the States right now, and he told me he had a special surprise gift for his beloved. He's going to bring her back because they're thinking about getting a dog. He's like, I'm going to try on bringing back an AI dog and see what she thinks about that. What do you think she's going to think about that? I'm like, I don't think she's going to like it, personally.
I mean, anyone who's had a real pet, like an AI dog, that would be freaky. And then they're getting really good. I've seen them. They almost look real, like they move kind of real, but it's just in the eyes. You look into the eyes and there's nothing there. It's dead.
There's no eyes. That's right.
Yeah.
No soul, therefore no eyes.
Yeah. So yeah, brother, I mean, we can just start riffing. What's up, Red Electric Dragon? We're super down to have questions from y'all if y'all have any questions. To re-sum up, again, where we kind of left off and some of the topics we're talking about. A big one, I was kind of framing it on the other video, which we scrapped because live video technical things. The whole idea of like the wild or nature, I think a lot of our community, they think you have to go live in the jungle or go do permaculture or whatever, go to the Amazon and rewild that way. And like, definitely that's legit and it works. It's awesome. Here in Costa Rica, I've lived on a permaculture farm in Chiang Mai in Thailand, like for 40 days or something, like off grid. It's amazing. Like I've done that. I've sampled it, but that's not what it's about. We don't have to grow papayas and be in loincloths. The modern world, because it's so alienating, we talked about this last time, it's actually, it's an energy and an essence. It's a story that's programming us, the artificial story. And becoming wild and sovereign is actually, it's just returning to the like source code. It's like basically our computer system has viruses to keep using the AI stuff.
Yeah. And you know, I definitely am a proponent of immersing oneself in the wild. There are many ways to do that, and I found that when I was in the States, by being with an elder wild man, by finding my mentor, which is a necessary part of individuation for all men, different for women, but like men need that. And like spending time with him and imbibing all of his wisdom as a hearthkeeper for the Mankind Project, you know, a lifelong like career therapist turned medicine man that trained with the Weechaw in Central America. Something about when I got turned on to the medicine work through apprenticeship, you know, when COVID hit, I was just like, this is the furthest thing from wild possible in the Bay Area, in a city like Berkeley that was supposed to be one of the most progressive places historically. I'm just like, I'm out. I visited a friend in Costa Rica for 2 weeks, and I'm like, this feels a lot better for me. I've been living here in a cabin in the jungle almost for the past 4 years, and the thing about wildness that you can get anywhere is if you really put yourself in a place of solitude for a long period of time. The difference between loneliness and aloneness. And if you can be alone with yourself, you won't have any chance to avoid the wildness within, like the architecture of your soul, which will bubble up when you're an echo chamber of your own existence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, solitude has always been the way to access it. Solitude in nature. It's the ultimate. And you don't need to go to the jungle again. You like wherever the nature is in your local area. No matter where you are on Earth, there's nature. Even if it's just a field in the
Mm-hmm.
grassland, um, that's the place. I think forests and running water are the best, or the ocean or mountains. That's kind of the best cocktail for it. Um, but yeah, I mean, this idea of like being in the wild, you know, wild to me, obviously wild is like primal. So there's the primal essence to it where you're in touch with like animal nature and you just have energy flowing through you. So relationships, this is very clear. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
body shame, for example, like you don't like how your body looks or feels or smells or your partner's body, you know, that can be difficult because that means you're just in your head. Whereas an animal, you know, a dog, you know, my puppies just sit around and, you know, lick their private parts and like lick each other's buttholes. And they have zero body shame. They're completely embodied and primal. Now, obviously, we don't have to do that as humans. We have much more advanced features cognitively, but there is a primal essence you can just feel. And I'm sure women will understand when a man is just like, he's so comfortable in his own skin and has free range of motion and expression. And that is a very powerful step on the path to being like sovereign or wild. Same with women and the feminine, you know. That might be one of the front lines, honestly, for modern people is, I mean, frankly, it's like the toxic beauty industry, colognes, deodorants, makeup, the toxic food people are eating. They actually can't even feel that because their body is carrying a toxic load or like numbed out or whatever. And it's really hard to just be in that state. You know, it really is about the body. Like if we want to talk about wild energy or sovereign energy, it's all happening in the body. It's not happening in this like, you know, negative space of the mind and ideas. Although it also is, right? So it's a tricky one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all there in the body. I recently, I might have mentioned this in a prior talk, was getting a bit into Bill Plotkin, and I didn't need to go too far to understand what he speaks about as soul is the material that we're interacting with when we're doing this so-called shadow work, right? It's the inward and the down. It's why in the mythologies of masculine individuation, like Iron John, they talk about doing bucket work, like taking water out of this lake at which the bottom holds this man, this hairy kind of like primal man named Iron John. And he's representative of what we are, our visceral primal soul nature as men. And this, I believe, is the foundation for all growth. Yeah, I mean, the king, warrior, magician, lover are excellent beginning points to orient towards, but it's my belief that we need to get in touch with this wild man first, also known as the green man. And throughout mythology, like this essence, this creature, you know, I like that word. He's got creature, he's an animal, shows up in many forms, like Jesus or Dionysus or Shiva or Cernunnos, the Lord of the Forest of Celtic and Gaelic tradition. Some even say that Robin Hood was one of these characters. Like, these are men who couldn't be stopped. Like, they had their vision and their mission, and they were all connected from their root, from their soul to God. And by moving from the soul towards God, this is where you encounter the rest of these archetypes and all their kin beyond the four major ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's so powerful. I don't know how many people realize this about Christ, but his story is played out so many times. You know, Dionysus being a huge influence from the Greek tradition. But yeah, Cernunnos, you know, Odin, Osiris, like
Hmm.
all these characters had this wild man energy that, you know, archetypes doesn't like take away from their meaning. Like some people are like, oh, it's like I believe in, you know, Christ, or I believe in, you know, whatever, Muhammad. And it's not just an archetype to me, it's a literal thing that happened and blah, blah, blah. And that's awesome if you believe that. But archetypes travel through time because, you know, it's like the classic metaphor of the stained glass. The light is shining through, but the stained glass window will, you know, do purples and pinks and greens and these different shades and angles. That's what the archetypes are. It's all the source. So whatever the wild man is, whatever Iron John is, you know, you can call it the divine father of divine masculine energy, the source, you know, wild energy that's like DNA level or primal level in
Yeah,
human
that's right.
men. It doesn't matter how the story's told. The reason the stories repeat is because they have immense validity and orientating power for the culture at the time. And what's funny is our culture, you know, this is the bigger conversation really, is we have myths or stories now.
Hmm.
Like if you talk to a materialist who got, you know, 6 shots, you know, they eat at McDonald's, they read New York Times and Scientific American every day. You know, I don't know if they're atheist or not. I think some are. They literally think that there is no meaning. We create all meaning. Humanity's on this progressive journey of technology and government and control and blah, blah, blah. And then when you die, it's just a black screen and it's over. So we need to get as much as possible while we're alive and do whatever. And like, this is not a good story. This story will not have a
No.
great ending because of the mystery, because of whatever the
Hmm.
creator, whatever God is, the mystery that's ever present. And I think that's, you know, as storytellers, as bards, both of us, that's actually the work is we have to create new stories. Now, there will be the same as the old stories and the archetypes, but they have to be for our time and our people.
Hmm. Yeah, storytelling is a lost art. You know, before literature and the written word came, everything was passed through story around the fire. And this is how we taught our kin and our brethren and our family like what it is to be a man or a woman, how to step into your role into a certain community. And that was all like far more clear because we were in these smaller groups of people, like 150 or so in these villages. And you're right, like in the stories, they don't say specifically, do this, do that in this way, and you will get this. It's all through character, it's all through narrative and plot. And everything in the story, and this may even be true for the Bible, is representative of something. It's like at the lowest level, we have this animal body that has the ego and the senses to survive. At the highest level, this connection to whatever you consider God. But we need something in the middle to interpolate, like how we can receive these fragmentations, our own perspective of consciousness, and like put it into a form that we can all speak about, but that we all have unique relationships to.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You know, it's like the totem pole symbology. You know, the totem pole has all these animals carved on it. It's in the center of the yurt or the teepee. Everyone's looking at it, but they see a different animal. They see something different, but they're all looking at the same totem pole of truth. But they'll each tell
Hmm.
a story. Oh, I see eagle and he soared and saw this. Oh, I see bear. He went into hibernation. The classic story. I think it's from the Inuit, but that's what the myths are. They give you exactly what you need because you relate to it in a unique way. That's what
Hmm.
movies or TV shows. when we watch a movie, a good movie, not some garbage that like Disney or whoever's creating now. Even Disney though understands the myth cycle very well.
Yeah.
You relate to the character that's most similar to you on your journey. You know, most people relate to
Hmm.
the main character, but there's an act of like psychic projection and transference, which is why you feel so much, because your brain is literally putting you in the character's shoes and feelings and experiences. And this is what myths did, you know. That's why I mean I am like a film buff and like I'm obsessed with literature and film, because I love myth and I love story. But it actually has a very beneficial and powerful, you know, role. I mean, Jordan Peterson, he had a great line on this where like the most expensive like media or technological artifact of our time is like Avengers Endgame. You know, they spent hundreds,
Oh. Mm.
like that's the biggest investment in like a media or technology thing ever is like if you want to say one product. Obviously there's things that spent more money. And what is it? It's a massive myth and story that everyone can relate to and get involved with.
Hmm. Man, something about, the Marvel universe, the DC universe. I love it. And also, speaking archetypally, like, they're so incredibly powerful and popular right now. So what does that say about the mass kind of psyche and community, right? And these stories, like, they're enchanting to a degree. They're healthy to a degree because the hero archetype isn't actually a mature masculine archetype. It's the mature aspect of like the first form as a child before you become the warrior. And so our stories are about heroes who like want to be center stage. They want to be saviors. Like they want to fight the opposing forces and meet them with that same energy of like this young energy of passion, of fire, of dynamism. But like we are not in the realm of stories about warriors or kings. There have been a few over time, like Gladiator. That's a story about a king. I haven't seen the second one yet because I'm pretty sure it's not going to be nearly as good. But that, stands the test of time. The Fellowship of the Ring. This is about not just heroes, but they're all banding together in a fellowship, which is really important to understand. And they're navigating their own personal stories by attempting to do what's right. And in the end, yeah, you can look at Sauron as a bad guy, but you can also see it as just like an antipode force of life that's necessary for these stories to play out. And so, let's see, we got some viewers here. I'm curious if anyone wants to get involved. Like, I once heard that it's important to pay attention to the stories that lit you up as a child, because these are the ones that were very meaningful to you while you were in a time of your life where you were far more open. Like, as far as Jung would put it, you're in a magical state. A lot of what you feel and experience, between 0 and 7 specifically, you think is you. You might feel it from your parents or your friends or in a story, but you can really dissociate from it until like a more mature age. And so if anyone out there wants to share, like, what are the stories you remember from your youth that really light you up? I'll just share mine. For me, it was Final Fantasy, playing a lot of role-playing games there, and the originals before 7, because 7 kind of jumped the shark, though I still like it. It was very different. Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so when I started to look at these things and notice like what I was becoming, I'm like, oh man, somehow life has carried me to a place where my life very closely approximates, largely metaphorically, what I was just inundated with in my youth and naturally drawn to.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm the same. Like all of those for sure. Um, and for me, it was. I mean, it's funny. Lord of the Rings. Like I didn't even want to see it. I was so young and ignorant. My dad had read it in high school, the books, and he's like, take me and my brother to go see the movie, and he was like excited, and I was like, I didn't know anything about it. I don't think I'd even seen the trailer. I don't know how old I was. I must have been in like sixth or seventh grade or something. And literally watched the movie, got my mind blown. I was just like,
Yep.
I was wrapped. And on the way home, I was like, we have to go to the bookstore and buy all the books. I was obsessed. And, that that myth, Tolkien is very interesting. A lot of people think Tolkien was like a pothead because he basically got home from World War One, super traumatized, but also very wise man, had all these experiences, and he was sitting in these fields in the UK, maybe smoking hemp or hash, we don't know, probably. He,
Yeah.
he created a whole universe. Now his universe isn't like random, you know. The
Nope.
elves, the Fae, the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, um, the like conflict between men, you know, the dwarven people. All this stuff is ancient. This goes back to Wagner, who was the great German composer, which he got the myths from ancient Germanic myths. Those myths all go back to the Celts and the Druids. So like
That's right.
all the European lore that's in Lord of the Rings, some of it's universal lore, right? That's all from a common source. Now, is that source just people making up crazy shit? Oh, look, orcs, the forces of darkness that can't be in the sunlight. Oh, look, elves, the immortal beings of light who are very craftsmen and military. You know, none of this stuff is just like, oh, it's just cool like literature or fantasy. It all bleeds back into the history of mankind. That's literally what all this stuff is, and maybe beyond, maybe beyond Earth, which I think it might be. It might be beyond this physical realm. Um, Now that's all cool and all, but like you said, the power of those myths and stories is they help us model and access those archetypes in ourselves.
Yeah.
So in the same way that I'm watching Aragorn, who like is the ultimate badass masculine, you know, he's in pure devotion. He's a peerless warrior. He's practices self-sacrifice. He has a mission. He's in love with a woman, an elf princess. You know, he's
Raised by elves.
right. He's very much like he checks all the boxes, although he has fear and he's been in hiding in exile, even though he's the heir to the throne. It's a classic story as old as time. As a man watching that, you want to be like that. You access it and have a memory bank and a template to live out in your real life. Now, you're not going to gather your bros and go to Mordor and start killing people, but your life, your work, your relationship, you know, that all is going to have its own Fellowship of the Ring journey, and you can call upon yourself if you choose to. You know, most people do it unconsciously or they joke about it, like, oh, that's something Aragorn would say, or are you trying to be a hero? But if you consciously practice it, you know, it's not LARPing, it's not live action role play. I remember in the Men's Academy, we were talking about this on a symposium, and someone was like, I don't know if they were triggered, but they were like, yeah, this is all kind of bullshit, man. Let's talk about real stuff. Like, none of this is real, which is so funny. It's not real. It's like, right.
So much to speak to there. It's like, yeah, we all have this ability to receive these stories when we're young, when we're open-minded, when we're still moved by fantasy and mythology in ways that we don't even understand. It's just alive. And then, unless these stories are carried, and unless there is a rite of passage to keep you embedded with them by your elders, again, especially as men, we start to calcify against them. And going back to what was present in the beginning by Kevin, like we get programmed with these new stories and these new myths from these new gods of like capitalism and money and technology, and we become hardened. And as you become a young adult and come into spaces, there's still a curiosity with these men in the academy, like, okay, I want to be around men. And they're coming in through the lens of philosophy. But when you start bringing story to them, they're like, that's not real. Like, there's been a disconnect. And going back to what you said about the Lord of the Rings, like, every character in there is their own archetype, for example. And like you said as well, you get a choice. You know, Bilbo and Frodo were just chilling in the Shire, like they got the life, you know. They're just feasting and smoking, and things are chill and easy. And then a wizard shows up, and he's like, "We got some work to do. There is darkness encroaching upon this land. You're probably in danger, and you know, we need your help." And they're like, "Okay." And they all had that choice point when they're in the Council of Elrond. You have my sword. You have my axe. You know, you've got my staff. And then they go for it. And they don't know where they're going, but they're doing it together. And there's a story there. There's an indication of like the call to action, like the hero's journey. And this is something that calls upon like our purpose. And this comes from our soul. It's like a beckoning that we feel in our body. It's not logical. And I'm sure everyone listening at some point has been invited to do something that feels big and scary and like way out into the realms of the deep waters that doesn't feel safe. And you considered it. And maybe you didn't say yes sometimes, and maybe you did. But it's these moments where your character and your purpose is being brought into the light. Like what are these risks that you will say yes to? What does that mean about you? How will it shape you? But if you stay in this society of literal enslavement where you just are trained to be an employee and you work for someone else's twisted dream, which usually isn't attached to anything altruistic or beneficent or humanitarian in any way, you get hardened. And over time, it just kind of, it pushes this essence of yourself deeper and deeper and deeper down. But the hope there, the saving grace it is still there, and this is basically part of the work that Kevin and I have been immersed in, is like unearthing this. And it takes time and it takes support. And it takes a lot of conversations like this, but chiefly it takes following your curiosity. Like, when's the last time you really let that lead the way? And you got to do it with discernment. If you're really entrenched, you got a lot of people to take care of, and you got bills and all that. Like, we get it. And there's always room to just slot in a little time for being open and having conversations with your brothers, coming into a talk like this and like, that felt interesting. If you feel a question or something bubbling up, throw it in here. Like, this is what we're here to do.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is probably my favorite topic of all time, is mythology, storytelling, the hero's journey, and like the psychic development of humanity and men and women. I use this all the time with clients in my coaching. Now, I don't often say it explicitly. I've had some clients who are like, more fantastically minded like us, where we can literally be like, all right, we're gonna create and connect to your superhero or heroic self, and literally use that as a tool of growth, which is epic, right? With people that maybe don't have that language, or they might give the response, well, that's not real. Let's talk about real shit, practical shit. It's like, okay. And I ninja it in, just using different terms, right? It's super powerful because, like, I mean, I remember I literally used to do this, and maybe I should start doing it again. I used to do sales for a nutrition company. I'd be at these huge mastermind conferences. And I'd also have to like give workshops and talks. I was also doing retreats, and that's when I kind of first started facilitating years ago, almost a decade ago. It's crazy. And I would literally, mine actually was like this ninja, like kind of dark, like not like an anti-hero, but like this very like savvy like operator, right? And before going into a presentation or a talk, or like I'm about to do sales for like 6 hours, I would literally like anchor and activate it. I had like my own like mudras and like, and it worked every time. Now you could say it's just pure placebo. You're just playing pretend. I was calling in an archetype of like extreme skill, charisma, decisiveness, savvy, whatever. And it was like my little ritual. And, I've taught people to do that. Tony Robbins teaches this. It's basically like, it's a state change anchor technique, or a flow state trigger. There's many names for it, but it really works because our nervous system and brain, if you want to go pure science, it can't tell the difference between what you're thinking and feeling, which are internal states, and the outside world up to a certain extent. So if you can create thought patterns and emotional patterns and channel them into a narrative, which is how the brain wants to organize everything, right? It wants a narrative. It wants to put this before that, and it flows like that. You can create that. What's crazy to me, and it's so sad to see, one of my clients flew in this past weekend, and we went to see a comedy show here at Joe Rogan's club. It was epic. And I hadn't been like downtown amongst people in like a crazy event in a long time. And man, the people watching, these people are literally, many of them are awesome people. I actually talked to some, but they're letting life in like the modern world and the news, which is the spellcasters, they're setting the narrative. And just like the heroic or mythological, our brain and psyche are so powerful. They'll create that narrative perfectly. I'm supposed to be afraid. I'm supposed to be racially insensitive. I'm supposed to be broke. I don't have power. I need to ask for power from the authority. I need to trust the lab coat to tell me if I'm healthy or safe. It's crazy, man. It's all magic. It's all magic. In the Bible, what is the land of sorcerers, like dark wizards? It was Medea, also known as Media.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all hiding there in plain sight if you just have the eyes to see. And they say if you want to get a little more occult for a moment, is like these powers that be that want to program us and enslave us, like they have to be above board about it, but they speak a different language, a language that's been normalized, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you bring up a great point about how we can also do our own programming. This is why in these communities and in this line of work, and if you ever work with a coach or a guide before, one of the first things they'll want to get clear on is like, well, what's your self-care practice? What do you do? All these really well-known life coaches out there, they talk about win the morning, win the day. And there's truth to that. It's like how you set your day up, which is like a microcosm of life itself, is going to help you move through the day in a certain way. So if you're sitting and with your affirmations, which is like programming back into you what it is you want to create, what it is you want to give, and you energize your body with good food, good exercise, good water, good sun, like that is going to buoy you through whatever's coming your way. And this is like your own time. I get it, man. In the beginning, it was so hard for me to cut off from everything else and not just jump on my phone the first thing I woke up to see what messages are there, see what tasks await me. But now it's like, man, I can't start my day because it feels so good without a few hours to myself. And sometimes it's not rigorous practice, and this can like turn people off. Oh, I don't want to do yoga, breath work, or meditation for hours. And don't. Just hang out and read a book or be with your plants or animals and go for a walk. Just like think about what it is. Meditate with a candle. It's a great way to start. Just look at the fire. The fire stokes the soul for sure.
Yeah.
But you got to have something there. You got to have a feedback loop with yourself. This is why journaling is also really powerful. Or a lot of people I work with, they have an aversion to journaling because like it does take a certain level of focus, of slowing down. A lot of people can't slow down enough to write. And so I do a voice note. Log it into ChatGPT, use it as a journal. I've been doing that as a journal. It's given me a great feedback loop around everything I'm trying to contend with right now as I put myself back together from getting blown out at Sundance. There are so many ways. And sitting in circles with men or your brothers in an intentional space to get feedback and share your story. That creates a much stronger circuit, especially if you commit to it, like week over week. But starting with the self creates like safety in doing such a thing. And it's going to start reviving these parts of you that lived this way when you were younger.
Yeah. The imagination. I mean, we lived inside our imagination as young boys and girls, this is well studied. Freud and Jung popped the hood on this stuff, and we look at the world of dreams and active imagination. I mean, it's a rich, rich world. What's funny is, like the professional athletes, like basketball, baseball players, the top coaches in the world reteach them how to use active imagination, to use visualization to perform better. And it's well studied now because it works.
Yeah.
That stuff really works. If you've imagined it and you felt it already, you've thought about it, you've practiced it in your mental model and palace and then your subconscious, when the time comes, the ego and the conscious mind can't interrupt it. It's automatic. But your unconscious and your primal wild body, your sovereign body, it can just knows what to do and it performs at the highest level. This is true of everything: sexuality, art, music, reading, writing, teaching, coaching. Whatever you're doing, you have to get out of the way of the negative programming. That's the craziest thing. We'll talk about it. The powers that shouldn't be. If you think the world is run by benevolent overlords that we're just ignorant. We just accidentally killed all these people. We didn't know what we were doing. We're trying our best. Which there's plenty of people that are, but because it's above board, so in the equivalent exchange or alchemical or natural law, you have to consent. So if you don't program yourself or have a plan or have these ritual triggers and archetypal connections, you automatically fall into that consensual negative plan, which, I'm not immune to and you're not immune to. It's happened to us for sure. And it still does. It's a constant, contention, it's a constant thing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, we talked about this last time. It's the red pill. You can't unsee this stuff. You can't get out of programming and then go back into it if you're awake and aware. Now, obviously, like some people
Hmm.
do backslide, including myself, and it can be challenging, but that also is a growth opportunity because sometimes you actually can't hold the charge or the equilibrium at the new level. You actually have to go back to the older level to master the lesson to move on, right? Life is like a university.
Yeah. Oh man, that just reminds me of where I'm at right now. Like my latest hero's journey, the wound I'm contending with that I thought I sorted out 10 over the past 10 years. The thing that put me on this path was an injury and doing martial arts, which was like driven by this like forward motion, needing more, doing more, being really aggressive, Muay Thai, and like, oh man, the father wound. Like I understand why my dad did what he did. I get it, and I'm still holding on to a lot of pain with that. Like holy shit, I gotta let that stuff go. And then what wants to start happening in my practice now? I got a heavy bag in my yard. I'm starting to work on it again. And I'm noticing the parts of me that just want to like go ballistic like an animal. But then again, my awareness has burgeoned since then. It's like this is what got you hurt. So like how can we do this differently? And I'm feeling so much novelty in my body with how I'm approaching it. And it's different now too. Like back then, I was listening to all this wild, this aggressive, toxic, heavy metal, like Korn and Mudvayne and Stain. Now I'm listening to this incredibly mythic and inspiring Norse music, which is still just as powerful, but it holds a spirit for me. You know, it's what like is boiling in my blood in a healthy way, and I can feel it like oh, the energy that comes through afterwards, and like just noticing how my back is like relaxing more, like I'm engaging with it in the way that I didn't get that support before. And it's all these cycles. You know, I'm just in another cycle. I'm up here, but it's calling up something that was down here. And it's been waiting for me for a long time.
Yeah. Wardruna, man. Getting back, I was listening to Wardruna years ago, and like when we were talking about them a few months ago, I like got back into them over New Year's and just like all the Druidic Norse like folk rock and metal and ballads. It's so
Hmm.
good. It awakens like an ancient, like if you're of European descent, Indo-European descent, there's just that'll awaken your DNA because that's where we came from. Those were our indigenous
Hmm.
ancestors, you know. It's so fucking powerful. But yeah, I love that name.
And like
Optimus Bacchus. That's very in line with the archetypal conversation we're having.
we got an Optimus Bacchus in here. I like that. I mean, that name is rich with mythology as it is.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like blending the current age and with something more ancient. I'd be curious to know what that means to our friend here.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned like what comes through when we hear this music, which is a bardic magic. Music carries story, and it's all very mythological and archetypal. But when it hails from such distant and ancient places, if it has a place in your ancestry, in your DNA, you're going to notice something. You're going to feel something, right? And this reminds me of the idea of like rites of passage. So some of you out there might know that part of my work is rites of passage using medicine. And when I'm working with someone who has a similar lineage to me, going back to the Celtic, the Norse, or the Gaelic, and it's time for us to do a mushroom ceremony, which you're opening up more to the realm of the mystical, I put this music on in the very beginning, because in the way that I was trained, you want to meet the energy where it's at in the beginning, especially with mushrooms. Like it brings you to the dark first. It's gonna bring stuff up, and like every time, as wild and aggressive and dark as this music can seem, afterwards the feedback is always the same. This feels like home. And then something changes. Something inside them awakens. Some part of their blood is reactivated. And from there on out, it's just like it's game on. There's a new life.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's talking about Bach as in Johann Sebastian Bach. Arguably
Ah,
classical music. I think Bach is better than Mozart actually. So I'm all about that. But um yeah, man. I mean, To sum up some of what we've shared, and I am going to post this one, so hopefully people will watch this later, and then we will do another one of these for those watching. So make sure, if you're not following Kyle from my page, go check him out, and vice versa if you're coming from his, because we have several other
Mhm.
talks we've already done. Um, Basically, like the idea is in the world that we're in, and AI is, I'm not afraid of AI because to me AI is like it is the ghost in the machine. So if there is a sentient AI, I would love to speak with it and like see where it's really at. But with AI, make no mistake, in the world we live in, we saw with COVID, right? We're 5 years out from COVID, which is crazy. Luke Story had
Whew.
someone on his podcast. I don't know how they're measuring this, if it's the Schumann resonance or some kind of esoteric thing, but he basically has a way to measure fear on the planet, right? Or something like that. I don't know who this guy was. I just saw this clip right before we started,
Oh
which
man.
has piqued my interest. He basically argued that when COVID started and then when the Ukrainian war started later, the fear measure on Earth was the lowest it had been since the Spanish Inquisition and like witch
Hmm.
burnings and all that, which is pretty fucking crazy if true. Um, my point in bringing that up though is like we've seen it now since COVID. We live in the World War III. World War III isn't like China is invading California. World War III is in the mind. Exactly. I don't know who said it.
Mind.
There's a famous quote. What's the guy's name? He's like a medium psychic, kind of contentious. I forget his name, but he's basically like World War III will not be a war in the physical. It will be a mental war, a mental programming war, where there's no
Yep.
distinction between combatants and civilians. So it's just going to be, it's complete free for all, and we live in that time, which is exciting because if you reclaim your sovereign wild power, connect to your,
Hmm.
connect to nature, connect to each other, community, these spells have no effect. You have spell resistance.
They
And even
fizzle.
more so, you can create your own spell. And that's the best.
Yeah. Pattern by design. You nailed it. When you understand there is no death, we have no fear. Like we are eternal. At a certain point, you realize death is just a passage. It's a doorway to something else. Even scientifically, we understand, have proven that energy doesn't disappear. It just changes shapes and forms. And like we're here in this form. And so for me, I get curious. I'm like, what am I here to do in this form? And I'm not immune from fear, but now I have an awareness of understanding what it means. It's like, oh, this fear means there's something for me I can learn from. Another lesson, which is what we're here for to do in these lives, is to learn. And so when we talk about what's happening here, this new world war, it is on the mental plane. And look how it's playing out. We're being divided at the deepest levels ever. Identity, religion, this like axioms. They're parsing us out because we were not as easy to control before. Like Kevin said, we were a place where we were relatively fearless, and people are feeling a lot of sovereignty, and that makes people hard to control. And we're still in a world where control is the mechanism that the powers that be are gripping onto. They don't have this level of awareness and consciousness, or maybe some do, but they're using it in a way like black magic in a way, like to use it as a power against others. And so this is what we're here to do is Kevin and I in our work, essentially we're guiding people to understanding the truth behind these matters so you can make your own decisions. You can cast your own spells. You can protect yourself. You can design the life of your dreams because that's what we're here to do is to make this heaven on earth and to live our dreams, to live our fantasies, to bring this mythology back to life, to write your own story and be able to tell it because the story lives on. The story is eternal and you are the story.
That's it, brother. Oh, yeah. Funny, now we have people joining, but I unfortunately do have to wrap this up. Um, Anyone who's watching right now, if you're vibing with us, Pattern by Design, Bacchus, Red Electric Dragon, yes, Edgar Casey is who I was thinking of. Um, all the epic people on here. Um, DM me right after this or DM Kyle and just say the word wild. If you want to go deeper, we're actually going to do a private masterclass, like a council,
Hmm.
um, completely free. but we want to welcome y'all in where we're going to go much deeper on this and actually have like interaction with y'all.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that, send us a DM right now. I am going to post this video on my channel. So the people that just got here, watch the first like 20 minutes because we went all over the place and it was epic. And also, yeah, make sure you're following Kyle or I. If you are watching this video later, also type in replay just so we know you're seeing it. And if you have any other comments or questions, Kyle and I will come back to it.
Yeah, and like Kevin said, we've been riffing on this for a few weeks now. So on each of our pages, we have reels with other, takes on this topics. And on YouTube, we have some longer form conversations, I think two now, about an hour plus. So there's plenty to catch up on before we come live in a circle and really get into it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, y'all. Well, this has been fun. I hope everyone goes out and summons your unique archetype to self-program for the good of all beings. Let's fucking do it. We have that power.
Yeah.
Until then, y'all.
We're the ones who've been waiting for. Love y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.